Hey Jen,
Hey Darren,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for being part of the Miracle Healings podcast. It's a pleasure, and I know it's a lot of time, so thanks for taking your time.
Betcha. Glad to be here.
So the reason that I wanted Jen on here to tell her story is she's years away from her deep and dark, but she also has traveled such an interesting path afterward, both professionally and personally. So I won't tell your story. I mean, obviously, you know it better than anyone, but maybe just since this is the Healing Miracles, like tell us kind of how you got from things were going pretty good and oh man, things are not going well, and now things are super dark, and now, and then kind of what happened as you bounced off of that dark bottom and how in the world you survived. That's probably a great place to start.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fortunate I get to share my story a lot, and I only share it because I offer hope to people that are going through hard things. And when you think you can't survive it or there is any hope, I'm hoping that my story will show that there is hope and you can overcome dark, dark things. Because believe me, there was a time I thought there was no way I could get out of this hole I was in. Um, so, I mean, my story starts, I had a great childhood. I was fortunate that way, unlike a lot of people that go through really hard childhood traumas or whatever. But I had a really good childhood, loving parents, grew up in a Christian home. And I was on a dance team that performed. I danced my whole youth, got to travel around the world doing that. So I was very blessed in that aspect. I have three brothers and great relationships with them, except for my oldest brother. There was an instance in my childhood that was probably the only instance that I had looking back. But it was an unfortunate instance. I woke up to him one night. He was drunk, fondling me. I was
Mm.
around 12 years old, and so I
Yeah.
immediately told my parents, and my parents kicked him out and did the whole thing. So I didn't really have a relationship with that brother after that going forward. So I didn't see him a lot. He unfortunately struggled and in and out of prison and the whole thing. It's a lot of substance abuse. So other than that, my childhood was really, really, really good. I was doing all the things I thought I was supposed to do. I went to BYU and met a guy and got married, and I thought my life was going to be great. And I married him, and we got in our first fight on our honeymoon. So it was a really big eye opener for me because my father was never abusive or yelled at us or did things like that. And this fight kind of set me aback going, okay, that's new. Um, and so marriage kept going, and I had four kids in 5 years, so really fast.
Wow.
And another first memory early on in my marriage is holding my newborn, and my husband got mad about something, and we argued, and he threw me against the wall with my newborn in my arms. So
Wow.
things started happening that way. And I learned really quickly that when he was upset to not say anything because then he would take it out on me. So at an early point in our marriage, I learned to just be quiet and not say anything if I had a feeling about something. So that's kind of how my marriage was going, very verbally abusive from there. And about 14 years into it, I was alone and sad, and my self-worth was down because I didn't feel like I had a voice. Um, and not proud of this, but I actually met someone and had an affair because it was nice having someone to talk to and laugh with, and I fell for the whole thing, right? Well, that didn't turn out very well. I wore the scarlet letter for a lot of years, and he made sure everyone knew about it, and so that made my self-worth even go down even lower. Um, and then he had told me about all the affairs he had had after he found out about mine. So
Oh, geez.
then I had a real feeling of distrust, and here I was thinking I was in this, marriage forever, um, and it was hard knowing that our marriage was so fractured. So the fighting began and even worsened. But at one point, he thought I would be really funny if I had a drink because I'd never drank or used any type of drug up until this point. And I was in my 30s, early 30s. And so I thought my marriage was kind of no fun anyway, no good. And what would it hurt, right? So we decided to go and try that and have some drinks on the weekends. And he was different. He was a lot more fun. So in my mind, in my sick mind, I thought, well, this is an answer.
Right.
let's just, let's just do that on the weekends, and liven things up a bit. But then it introduced other things into our life, other people into our bedroom, and just a horrible new life. Now I'm going down this road, and so what down even lower. And so now I'm doing things I normally would never have done. I'm drinking a lot, and my marriage is horrible, and I have no self-worth. And so the depression started kicking in pretty heavily. Um,
Well,
and so at that point,
oh, sorry,
I'm sorry, you cut
I was
out.
just gonna say, it's so interesting how, like, when we try to solve things, I mean, we decide to work on the external, right? To pad it with something like a chemical or an experience or a person, or rather than to dig into those deficiencies that are the deepest parts of us, right? Those shadow selves that we all have. Every human has one. I mean, you're extremely brave for talking about yours, but I mean, the number of humans that haven't either done all of that or fantasized about it are, it's just all too common. But the uncommon part is digging under that to try to figure out what really matters. Because eventually all that stuff, like you said, your marriage is still miserable, like things still aren't good, and the core issues haven't been addressed, and you're getting darker and darker and darker. Sorry, I didn't mean to overstep you, but I just wanted to kind of shine a light on that when we chase healing, we often chase, we don't chase the roots. Like we often chase the tops of the trees, not realizing that we're a long ways away from what we really need, or what we really don't have.
Right. And doing all those things just makes your self-worth and everything just get darker and darker and darker. And
Right.
so then I got into that depression even more and more and more. So what I started doing was self-medicating on my own when we weren't together. Now I'm finding, well, that was kind of an escape for me. So let me continue that. So whenever I was feeling down or we got in a fight or whatever, then I would turn to the alcohol. So now I'm drinking on my own. And what happens when you're drinking is your filter comes off. And so when we get into an argument, it would get that much worse because now Jenn is saying what I think, right?
Ah, yeah.
So that didn't work out very well, and then it became very physical. So it was a lot of verbal abuse up until then, and then it became physical. Um, and so now I'm getting into a lot of beatings and whatnot. So what does that do to me now? I dive more into the drinking, more depressed. Didn't know what to do because I didn't want to tell my parents or family or anything because then I know it would be over and they would step in, and I'm trying to keep the family together for my children, right? Which was horrible because now they're exposed to their mom getting hurt and more fighting and the whole thing. So um, we did finally get separated, and I got my first DUI, which I'm not proud of, but I was going down that hole. And so that was added stress, and I was scared and the whole thing. Um, so of course we got back together because I thought that would fix it. He would help me. He said he would help me get through it, and then the beatings got worse. And the last straw was we were having an altercation, and my neighbor luckily called the police, and he had arrested. He's been arrested like 4 times, but this was the last one. And of course, I'm in a kind of a battered wife syndrome phase where I didn't want to press charges because then it would make things worse for me, is what I thought. Um,
Right.
but that last time, when he got arrested, I really hit the bottle hard. I was super sad and scared and just drinking. And I had a knock on the door, and I would normally never answer the door when I'm in that condition, but for some reason I did. And it was a neighbor, and she said, "Jenn, you got to get help. You if you stay here, he's going to kill you. If you or you're going to keep drinking and drink yourself to death." So I made the decision to go to rehab, and while I was in rehab, he came up to bring the kids to visit and got in another altercation in front of everyone there. And so my therapist, like, you can't go home. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way. And he told me I wasn't allowed to come home. So I went and lived with my parents, and that brought on even a darker depression because now I don't have my children.
Mm.
And he's at home with the children in the house. And so then it became a whole nother cycle of me not having my kids or my house or anything. I just had my little clothes I brought with me. And so um, then it started a whole nother deep cycle of me trying to figure out how to cope with this. When I didn't have my children, that was the worst that could happen to me, right? But I did pretty well at treatment. I got, better. I got my star A student in treatment. I really feel good and want to get this tackled and be better. And so my parents had bought me a home and trying to help me. They tried everything to help me. But the one condition was if you drink, then you're out, right?
Yeah.
Well, things happen, and with my kids and not seeing my kids, and my ex knew how to push those buttons. And so what do I start doing again to cope? So I start drinking, and my parents kick me out. So now I'm in this little apartment, and by this time, I have lost my driver's license, and so I'm on a bike, right, riding to work in Salt Lake in the snow, and doing all the things. And so I'm dealing with that. I don't have a car. I don't have a home. I don't have my kids. And so I'm just in this dark, dark depression, riding my bike to work, and had to do work release, which in lieu of going to jail, I had to show up for, it took me a year and a half to work off that, but I'd have to show up to the jail. And so now I'm on the side of the road picking up trash and sweeping parking garages and picking up bullet casings, and I'm just doing all this stuff at the jail. And so my self-confidence and self-worth and just everything is just in the toilet, right? I'm just, this is my life. What happened to my life? I'm on the side of the road picking up trash, right?
Right. Wow. Yeah.
So that, and I didn't have the tool. I didn't know how to get out of this. So I'm just in this constant loop of I would get better, go to treatment, get better, and then things would happen, and then I just turned back to the alcohol because that was my only way to cope. And so I'm probably one of the only people, well, there's others, I'm sure, but I actually got a BUI on a bicycle. That's the thing. And
I sorry for laughing, but that yeah, I mean I guess that is a thing, but congratulations maybe. I don't
I know I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was not funny. And I'm
no,
like,
no, it's terrible. That's why I'm laughing. That heavy tragedy mixed with such a strange circumstance and so much devastation already. Like you're already down, you're already out, you're riding a dang bike, and it's still like,
still, here it comes. Yeah, so here I am in a lot of trouble with the law. I'm down this cycle and still missing my children and feeling like a horrible mother. And and it's hard when my ex had told my children I abandoned them. So I add that on top of it, that they think that I left them, you know what I mean? So my head was just in a dark, dark place. Um, so then after I working through, I'm living in some apartment, and I meet this guy online, and he was super nice. And it was nice that I met him because he showed me that men could be nice. Like, I feel like that was a purpose for me to learn. But moved me to a local or a really remote place, and in the country, and boredom and no children and the whole thing. So what do I want to start doing again is hitting the drink, right?
yeah.
So I'm doing things that are crazy because I can't drive, so I'm still in his brother's car and going into the next town, just craziness, right? So he had had enough of that, so kicked me out. And now I had a bicycle. That was my only mode of transportation. So now I had enough money. I sold that bike, and so I had enough money to be in a hotel for like I don't know, a week or two. And so I'm in the hotel, and I'm just, you know, drinking myself silly because I'm so depressed and down and dark. And how did I come from this bright, you know, bright girl that had so many dreams and thought I had this eternal family and the whole thing, to now living in a hotel homeless and the whole thing. So, and an alcoholic to boot. So I'm in this hotel, and I'm just I'm drinking myself silly. And that oldest brother that I told you about earlier, that I didn't really have a relationship with, he had got himself clean and cleaned up. He was actually working at a recovery center in Salt Lake. So I thought, I'm going to call him and see if I could get help. Maybe he could get me into that recovery center. And so I called him, and he came over, and the first thing he did was hand me a flask. And I was like, okay, being an alcoholic, great. Well, the next thing I wake up to my brother raping me. So I feel like he had drugged that flask, and that's what I woke up to. And I didn't know how to process that on top of everything else. So now I have all this other drama that I was going through, and then on top of that, deal with this thing with my brother, and that was hard for me. So I,
Yeah.
of course, drinking and trying to just end it, and stayed in the tub for like 2 days. So luckily, I was able to call that same lady that came and knocked on my door that first time, and she came and got me, and she said, I need to, take you to I want to take you to a place, but you need to go to the homeless shelter for a couple of weeks. I stayed there for about 2.5 weeks. So they made me stay in a homeless shelter first. And so now I'm in like my 40th birthday in a homeless shelter. And it makes you like look at your life too and go, how did I end up here? It
Really?
doesn't get worse, right? It
Really?
doesn't get worse. And
Huh.
so I'm in the homeless shelter. Like I really got to get out of this. I'm willing to do anything, right? So I went to that treatment center and I did really well, starry student again. I'm like gonna lick it this time, but I always had, I was always religious. That was important to me, but I don't think I realized the purpose of, uh, how do I put it? Like knowing God and how he can help me. And so I just figured, you're a good person, he helps you, or, I had this misconception of what it was all about. So I don't think I really focused on that part of my life. And that was what was missing for me.
Yeah.
But I was pretty angry at God. I felt like God was punishing me. I felt like he wouldn't help me because of all the things that I've done. And I was in this hole, and I don't deserve help. That's how I felt. And so I was pretty angry at God. And I went through that whole phase, and which I'm sure a lot of people do, because bad things happen to a lot of people, but they probably question why me? What else can happen to me? Um, but I after that treatment center, I was doing really well again, and I was able to rent a house, and I worked for my other brother that was really great to give me a job and get me going again. And I would also all the times just tell him about all these things that happened to me, why me, blah, 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 blah. And my brother had said to me, which really hit me, he said, Jen, when are you going to quit being a victim? Because that in my mind, but all these things happen to me, so I should feel this way. How do you
Right.
not feel this way when all these things happen to you? And for
But
some reason,
a lot of them that you had absolutely nothing to do with, right? Like you truly were in some of those instances, you truly were a victim. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but still, like you have a legitimate claim on victimhood. So yeah, anyway, keep going, keep going.
yeah, but for some reason when he said that, I'm like, so there's a choice. Like at first I was like, no, I can't choose to not be a victim because I am a victim. But
Right.
that comes in later. So anyway, so I'm renting this house and I'm feeling really good and I'm working hard. And my daughter wanted to move in with me. She's 18 at the time, and she was pregnant. And I was all excited I could be grandma and have her home with me and the baby, and that was really exciting to me. But her boyfriend was coming with her, and the one thing I said is, there's no drugs or alcohol in my house, right? So I would go and work, coming home from work, and I could smell the pot and all the things in my house, and
Mhm.
so I told them they can't have that here. And one day I got in an argument with my ex over the children again, and settling the house and all that stuff. And I went in her room and found alcohol under her bed. And it was enough. I was having that bad of a day that was my go-to. So that was it for me. Once I started again, it was on. So much so that one day, so I've been drinking again, and I had this huge pain in my side, and I'm like, what is that? Like a pain I've never felt before, like someone stabbing me, and I couldn't get in any position to feel better. And so all I could do was scream out scream. That's all I was doing in agony, pretty much. And my daughter's like, you need to go to the hospital. Like, this is crazy. And so I went to the hospital and I had pancreatitis and all my organs had shut down and they gave me 10% chance to live. And so now here I am in the hospital for 30 days on a feeding tube. And um, I was septic and had the whole thing, like, so no one could come visit me. And so now I'm thinking, okay, it can't get worse than this, right? I've now hit, I've now hit another rock bottom. I'm almost dying. And I thought, oh, that's it. I'm never drinking again, but I've never like got to the root of what was really going on with me. And so, um, and I was on a feeding tube for 2 months after the hospital. And so I was committed again. I'm gonna lick this thing because I don't want to die. Like, even though I thought I did earlier throughout this whole process, but when it came to lying in the hospital bed, I really didn't want to die. Um, so I did my best again and worked hard and was doing really well and you know, met another guy online and married him. And he was great and funny, and my parents liked him and the whole thing. And so I'm thinking, okay, my life is going in a different direction now. This is it. Well, until I've started noticing everything was missing from my home, like computer and my camera equipment, and just random things started disappearing. And then we get an eviction notice on our door, and now come to find out I've been dropping him off at a fake job, and he basically, we got evicted and we had to move in. My parents took us in, luckily. And then I came home one day and all their stuff's missing. So we knew that he was stealing everything. So he stole about over $50,000 worth of stuff. And so kicked him out. And then here I am now living at my parents'. New husband was a con man. And I'm like, well, what else could literally happen to me? Like, and I'm still fighting to see my children and just the whole thing. And so what do I start doing again? Even after I almost died from it, and I start drinking again. That was my go-to. Um, so started drinking heavily again. My parents, of course, were not happy with that and kicked me out. And so I went back to that con man husband. I call him my fake ex-husband now. Um, so went back to him. Well, found out that he was still married when he married me. So just to top things off, it wasn't even like, well, I guess it was legal on my end, but not on his end. I don't know. But I had to get that annulled. So I went back to this guy that had just conned me, was still married when he married me, but that's where my mindset was, just in just darkness. And I just guess I needed to be with somebody, you know. Um, anyway, so ended up being in some guy's basement with this guy because he couldn't hold a job because he probably owed other people money. And basically he liked to keep me drunk and like his sex slave is how I put it. So it was a horrible situation. I was able to call the police and get out of there. And I kind of felt like, I like to describe it where I was at this point, like being in a tub of tar and you're just trying to climb out with there's no light because the tar just covered it. And I'm just trying to climb, but there's no light shining through.
Right.
And that's how I felt, like where I was, and the hopeless and all of it. Just like, why am I here? Like, why am I here to just keep going through another thing, another thing? And it goes back to that piece of me. I finally said a prayer and I go, why again do I need to go through all these things? Like, what did I do to deserve this?
Right.
But then I sat back and I just said, I will do anything. I will do whatever you want me to do. And I'm praying at this point because I believe there has to be a reason. And I'm willing to do whatever to come out of this hole. And it's basically, I gave my will over and I put it in the hands that are greater than mine, because this was not working. I was making horrible decisions. And it wasn't until I finally said, I will do whatever. And I ended up going to my last treatment center. I've been to 5 treatment centers. And this was the last one where I finally says, I'm going to put it in your hands, God's hands this time. and see where this goes, because I can't trust this right now. So that's what I did, and I did everything everyone told me to do. I trusted others that was put in my path to help me, because I couldn't help myself at this point. And that's when the magic started happening, is when I finally gave my will over and trusted that I have a purpose that I'm not aware of. And that's when the beauty started, because miracle after miracle happened. I was able to get a car back. I was able to get a house. I was able to, people were driving me, helping me, um, just blessing after blessing, because I finally said, I can't do it on my own. My journey needed
Right.
a bigger hand in it to help me through it. And that was beautiful to watch that actually happen. And once I did that, like in AA, they have the 12 steps and the 12 promises. There's promises with those steps. And I really clung on to those. I'm like, well, if I do this, then I'm promised this. And so I really held on to that, saying, if I do the work and keep and trust this process, then I'm promised these things. You know what I mean? And I held on to that, and it really, really came true. Do I still have problems and trials right now? Absolutely. Like my children, it's taken a long time for them to trust me and come back, and our relationship has taken many years. This is a whole process of like 12 years. Um, and I look back going, if I keep going the path that I was going, I'm never going to have a relationship with my children. I know that's been proven to me.
Yeah.
But if I keep going the
Yeah.
way I'm going now, it's promised to me that they will come back. And it's
Mm.
slowly but surely it is happening. And those relationships are forming, and it's beautiful. I'm so blessed and lucky to be here. And now I kind of understand that there was a purpose for me. I can go through those hard things maybe to help others now, and maybe that's my purpose.
Yeah.
My daughter's going through some addiction things now, so I who understands that better than I do. And
Right.
so like things have come around full circle, so I can see a bit clearer now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your husband now, I mean, I know you've been, lied to and, all of that horrible history, but your hubby now, who I know is, I mean, I think you kind of hit the lottery with this guy. Good man.
I did. He's good. He is a good man, and it was promised to me, right? And
Yeah, but
it's true. He is, and I told him that whole story like the first time I talked to him, and said, "Do you still want to date me?" And he loved my vulnerability and honesty with him, and so he goes, "Yeah, I do actually." And so it wasn't like anything was hidden from him. He knew everything up front, and so it's just been a beautiful relationship, and I'm super super lucky to have him.
no, I had to give you a little bit of a hard time because that's such a nightmare. And I think it's important that people realize that when you get yourself straight, and we all have shadow selves, we all have potentials, we all do evil, we all do good. I mean, humans are messy, all of us are. But when you really do the things that elicit health and stability, when you do those things, irregardless of what's happened in your past, it seems like health and stability will find you, and even in kind of the strangest places. And I think a lot of people, me included, um after my divorce, I thought nobody's ever going to want me, or if they do, it'll be a big compromise, it won't be the same. And my story is nothing like yours, but as a young woman, I mean, you had to have thought, man, whoever I end up with now, I'll just be a charity case. They won't truly want me. They won't really be able to love me. Like I have these crazy scars that I'm bringing into this space. But I think your story is such a testament that just do the right thing and just give the rest away. Just do the right thing. Be quiet. Like let God handle it. And then these wonderful things that none of us deserve, frankly, will come into your life. And we all deserve them too. I
Yeah.
mean, none of us deserve them because we're also imperfect and messy, but also we all deserve, joy and love and those things as well. So yeah, I just wanted to put a little highlight on that in spite of the darkness, I think a good message to everybody is just clean up whatever you've got to do, whether it's pain or alcohol or these past histories of trauma, just clean up and just wait and watch, and you will have miracles happen. But just do your part and then be quiet, right? Does that sound accurate?
So accurate. And it was for me, like looking in the mirror, I hated who I saw. I felt like I didn't deserve anything. And I had to start looking in the mirror and telling myself that I love you. And that was hard to do. And I did it every morning. And then I also wrote down at least three things I was grateful for, even if it was my blanket. Like sometimes it was hard to find things I was grateful for in that moment. But what happened was, is it, rewired my brain to be in more of a gratitude space. Like, look, I have a job, I have help with rides. Like it was little things, but then it turned into bigger things. And then I started looking in the mirror going, you do deserve a happy life. Like you do deserve
Yeah.
everything. And it took me a long time to do that, but that was the key for me to realize that I am worthy good life. I had to change that mindset of mine. And you're frozen.
Am I frozen?
Oh, there you go.
Oh no, I don't know what's happening. But yeah, no, I love that. And I love that message that, even if you've been through a lot, and even if you've caused it, like a lot of your story, and even if it was caused by other people and you were victimized, that you've also experienced both. Like you have this crazy story of being victimized, and you also have this pretty rough story of choices that you made. And both of those things, you stir all that into a soup and say, well, what do I do now? It would seem like your own choices would be easier, but I don't know. I don't know if that is easier or not, but I think your brother's comment is just profound. So whether you've caused it or whether somebody else has, that idea that no more, like I'm going to start today and I'm not going to let any of that stuff dictate or influence or victimize me. Like I'm moving on and moving through. And I mean, and you've also decided not to just, keep your recovery in a bottle. Like you're now out serving, you're now out helping, you're out trying to gather and be supportive to those people that are also struggling. And your story is, I mean, you're pretty dang lucky to be alive, really. I
Yeah,
mean,
I believe so.
lucky to be alive, let alone kind of work through that drama and trauma and darkness to this place where now you have this message like, yeah, it can be awfully dark, but man, you can also get through it, and you can leave all the substances and the medicines and all that behind, and good people will find you, good partners will find you, love will find you, success will find you, and here you are putting things back together, and your kids are snuggled up again, and yeah, and amazing, just seriously amazing. I didn't mean to talk so much, but I wanted to gush about you. I don't think you'll do enough of that, so I wanted just to say
That's
how
good.
it's really special to kind of hear that story and then watch you recover through that, and then move through those processes and do good in the world.
Thank you. Yes, it's a blessing. And I feel fortunate to be where I'm at now because I'm a photographer by trade. I've done it my whole life. And to end up where I'm at now, helping others is the best job in the world. And it's like, okay, maybe now I get it. I get my purpose and I get why I went through these hard things, even though it was not fun. But I understand it now. And so I
Yeah,
guess, you also hear people say grateful alcoholic. Well, I am because I've learned so much in that process. And now I look at life in a different lens of gratitude and non-judgment and just empathy towards others. So
yeah, so special. So when those pressures do come, you're not turning to alcohol, of course, or any of the other stuff. When you'll still feel pressure, you still get hit in the mouth. You're still in the world that I live in and the rest of us live in. So when that really dives onto you now and that darkness comes, which it does, what do you do? Like how, like what do you turn to now? Maybe is a better question.
I think for me, well, spiritually, I turn to that helps me, but I also sit and I feel it. And then I cry if I need to. I'll allow myself to cry and have a moment. But then I'm like, tomorrow I'm not doing this. Tomorrow's another day. And I just let it move through me now instead of sitting with it and because then it spirals down and I know where that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes to nowhere. Yeah.
So I just feel it and move on and just start again tomorrow. Yeah.
Love it.
So that, yeah.
And Dr. Tate years ago, he's a mentor of mine, David Tate, really good psychologist. And we were talking, I mean, some of my own troubles and struggles, and something you just said alluded to a profound comment he made. He said, Darren, are you a screen door or a backpack person? I said, I don't know what that means. He said, well, screen door people, they feel things authentically in the moment, like a breeze that blows through the screen, but then they have to let that go because they want to experience in real time and reality. They want to experience life in the next moment. So they're constantly feeling, but they're constantly moving through, and they're also letting things go behind. So they're just having this really dynamic, really beautiful experience. I'm like, so the backpack person, he says, yeah, you guessed it. They put everything in the pack and they like trudge around and they feel the weight of it. And it's so crap, and they talk about it all the time. They go to therapy and they unload it, and then they load it back in and they go home, and that screen door philosophy where you really can let things blow through. You got to be authentic. You don't want to pretend. But boy, the
Right.
packing is always dangerous. And I love that you said, yeah, you feel it and you're with it and you're authentic with it. And then you're like, I'm not doing this anymore. And then you move past and through. Yeah, watching
Yeah.
humans do things that we theorize they can do, like you did. Well, we think that humans can be resilient. We think that given these horrible circumstances, they can rise above. We talk about it. There's all these seminars and help and books and podcasts, but having a real live one walking around out in the village like you that can say, yeah, like it can be awfully dark. You can throw horrible things at me and I will overcome.
Yeah.
I will learn. I will develop. I'll figure this out and I'll move into something beautiful. It's just, yeah, I mean, amazing, amazing.
Yeah. I was carrying like 12 backpacks for a long time, full of rocks, but I thought these are all mine. I'm going to carry it.
Right.
So yeah, now I don't do that. Yeah.
No, yeah, I love it. I love it. It's such an inspiring story. Jenn, I've taken a ton of your time. I'm so appreciative of you being on this Miracle Healings. I think hopefully we can get a lot more people onto. There are a lot of profound stories out there. I like listen to the news and I hear all this devastation, but there's also these glimmers of hope. We as humans, we really can rise. We really can overcome. We really can develop through. We really can learn and change truly and not revisit the ghost and those demons of the past. And you're such a tangible example of that yeah, absolute honor and respect for your journey. And I can't wait to see where life takes you. You've got this PhD in these hard knock schools, and you've got thousands of students that are needing you as a teacher, and they're going to keep finding you until you die. And being prepared as that teacher is just, there's no greater gift you can offer the world and all of us, and me included. So thank you so much.
My biggest advice is to keep going. You're worthy and deserve everything. Like,
Mm,
just don't stop.
I love it. I love it. I won't. You've inspired me today, so I love it.
Oh, well, you inspire me every day. So,
Oh, yeah, but thank you for everything, and staying close touch. And thanks again for being on. And this story will help a lot of people, so appreciate it.
all right. Thanks, Darren. Appreciate
Yeah.
you.
And thank you. Have a great
All
day.
right.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.